This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
Hello, adherents on the path of Blackflame, and welcome to another episode of Fantology. My name is Ryan, and I am joined with fellow Fantology member Josh, and we are here to discuss books 3 and 4 of the Cradle saga. I guess series. I don't know the correct term. But book 3 is called Blackflame, and book 4 is Skysworn. I have read these about 2 months ago, and because of my astounding recommendation, Josh decided to follow me on this journey. So we're going to start off with spoiler-free thoughts, and then after that, we'll go into spoilers, so that when we'll give you a warning before we do that. Josh, let's hear your high-level review of these books.
Okay, high-level review. I think that they continue to meet my expectations for what the first two set, and I can't remember exactly what I gave the first two, but they were, I think, better than average. I'm enjoying them, and I'm still excited to keep continuing on with the series. I think, in my opinion, book 3 was a little bit stronger than book 4. And we can get into details for the reasons why in the spoiler section, but those are my high-level thoughts. The characters continue to develop well. A point I made in the first review was that I hoped that more characters get built out well besides just Yaren or Lyndon, and I think that has happened with both Yaren and Ethan. And so that was what I thought the series really needed to do if I was going to continue to enjoy it, and it's done that well. So those are my high-level thoughts, spoiler-free thoughts.
Great. So going back to our books 1 and 2 review, I said book 1 was good, and then I thought book 2 was better. You said book 1 was good, and book 2 regressed a little bit, wasn't quite as good as book 1. So as far as books 3 and 4, I'm going to have to agree with you. I liked book 3 better than book 4 as well. I think that book 3 was exciting and a little bit more directed, whereas book 4, it seemed, I don't know, not quite as focused for me on, I don't know, they were just kind of, okay, I'm not going to go into any spoilers on the actions of the characters, but I still think it's a decent book. I don't know if it's my book 4 is my least favorite book through the first 4 books.
Oh, up through the first 4. I thought you were meaning of the whole series. I was like,
I mean,
that's the weakest one.
Honestly, maybe of the whole series, it's the weakest one for me personally.
That's kind of a good recommendation, though. I think if that's the weakest one, then that's a pretty good weakest entry, I guess. So, yeah, I would say it's the weakest of the first 4 as well. I would agree with that.
Yeah. But let's do you have anything else as far as high level to say? I don't think I mean, obviously I think this is a great series. If you have read the first 2 books, then you might as well keep reading.
Yeah, well, I would say if you read and enjoyed the first 2 books, I think if you didn't enjoy them, then I don't think anything in these 2 books are going to really turn that around for you. Like I do think book 3 has been the strongest of them, but not by a lot. Like I think that they all hover around like the 6 to 7.5 range. Is kind of what I would say. So they're all pretty comparable to each other, in my opinion.
So you think that in your mind these books are, I think, good but not great?
Yeah, but I think that there's an ability to have the sum be more than, like the whole be more than the sum of the parts, if that makes sense. Kind of, I have similar thoughts with the Dresden Files. Like there are some really, really great books in the Dresden Files. I think that those have gone higher than it's kind of hard to compare. I don't want to really compare the 2 series, but in the sense that there's a lot of books in them, and as you go through, then the sum of all these books even if not all of them are amazing books, like they're coming together in a way that is really, really compelling to me and building out this really cool narrative. So I think that this definitely has the opportunity to do that, where even if none of the books individually like blow me away, the world and the way that that builds out this cast of characters, I think has the potential to be really compelling.
All right. Well, let's go into spoilers now. So if you're listening or watching, now's the time, and you haven't read these books, now's the time to stop and go read them and then come back and then finish up this review. So specifically, what did you think about the path of the Black Flame and Lyndon going down it?
Yeah, really cool. I mean, I really, who doesn't like dragons, right? And so they kind of like channeling. First of all, I think it's cool to have like a turtle be like kind of the emblematic dragon, in this. And not gonna, I hope we do see more, dragons. But I do kind of like the turtle being kind of like the little brother who has kind of something to prove that he's a dragon too. I think it's fun. I think it's a cool take. I like that Lyndon is kind of resurrecting this path a little bit. I mean, I know that like there's still some like practitioners out there. I'm still a little bit unclear on that.
It's interesting because it seems like something that might be used by a villain. Because the path of the Black Flame, it's like so strong, but part of like the downside is that it's destructive towards its followers, because and that's like the ultimate downfall. It seems like the tool a villain would use, power at whatever cost. So it's interesting to see like a good protagonist like Lyndon going down this path.
Totally agree. Yeah. But yeah, I think that was a cool twist, a good way to go. I really like about this book, I really like the training sequence, like how most of it was set up in this kind of training yard with Lyndon and Yaren. I think that was probably the strongest part of the series so far, because it really helps build out their characters. It's a cool setting. I think that what these books do really good is focusing in on these like individual settings, which is why, if you remember, I really liked book one, because I thought Sacred Valley was really well established and thought out. And I kind of think that something similar with the kind of training ground with Lyndon and Yaren, it felt like this cool built out place that I could kind of picture. I think that some of the magic kind of wears off when they kind of get out into the more open world, because there's these politics and tribes and all these things, which I feel like I kind of have a grasp on, but also not following completely. That's just not really what I'm interested in. I like it when it's more focused and narrowed in on these interesting settings.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the first 2/3 of the book is probably focused on Lyndon training, and Yaren's also training, although she's not training in the path of Black Flame. She is training alongside him. So I think so most of it's focused on that, but then the last part of the book does open up a bit, and it becomes more of the conflict of the Aurelius clan versus the Jai clan. So did you like it less when it opened up at that point?
Yeah, I don't really care about that conflict, and from what it seems like, that conflict maybe kind of going away with more the move towards, like in book 4, which we'll kind of get to, I guess, like more the move towards fighting against like the phoenix, the blood phoenix,
the bleeding phoenix,
the bleeding phoenix. Yeah, and kind of more and I do hope that these clans do continue to play a role, but I don't know. It just seems kind of like the Jai clan is a way to introduce like some compelling mid-level villains, but it's not really holding my attention like I wish it would.
Yeah. I thought it's interesting that, the Aurelius clan like literally are the janitors of the realm, and they they obviously hold more power than you would think like a clan of janitors might. So I thought that was an interesting trope, whereas the Jai clan seem, mostly like warriors and it's interesting how, these two could even have like a conflict to
feud.
begin with. But I actually kind of think I liked the conflict more so than the training. So I think we liked opposite parts of the book a bit more. And I think I like that it's opening up a bit and you start getting more and more glimpses of like, first it was just Sacred Valley, then Lyndon's starting to be introduced, but it's like the outskirts of the rest of the world. Well, now he's like in the Empire, starting to get a sense of how things work, where Clan Aurelius is. And you know that at the end of book 2 that Ethan Aurelius is an underlord, and you're like, well, how powerful is that? And so now you're starting to get a perspective. You're like, well, he's the most powerful person around except for Jai Daisho. And then in the background is this whole lurking conflict with Jai Chan. Is that, or no, Jai Long? And and so like they're training, and then it starts to kind of come to a head. Not necessarily the conflict between Lyndon and Jai Long, but the conflict between the Aurelius clan and
The
Jai clan.
Jai clan,
Jai clan. Yeah. Specifically, what I really liked was that we learned another important thing about Ethan at the end of this book, and that was that his path is pure Madra, which is totally different from I think anybody was expecting, because like nobody up to this point uses pure Madra, and so it was kind of fun to see him fight Jai Daisho just with like a broom.
That was gonna be my favorite part, I think, of the whole book, was the broom fight. And it's like, oh, was it in book 4? It might have been in book 4, but he's like, oh, they made me get out the broom. Do you mean an actual broom? Yeah, what else would I mean? Like, I think this it was pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that maybe one part that I didn't like about the path, or about book 3 Blackflame, was that it has built so much in anticipation of the fight between Lyndon and Jai Long, but we still don't see it at the end of that book.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always thought that fight was going to be kind of underwhelming, which it was and it wasn't. But I always thought it was just a way to like put some stakes on, make Lyndon continue to train really hard. And like, I never thought it was going to be obviously like that impactful, mainly just because we're like on book 4 of a, 12, how many book series?
It's going to be 12 books.
12 book series. Like, so I think I was more forgiving of not seeing that fight at the end of that book, because again, it's kind of more journey than destination at that point. Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we move on to book 4?
Yeah, let's see. I think that again, I think that the leveling up goes pretty well. Like, I think you have a good understanding of like what his powers are, what it's going to take to get to the next level. He always levels up in interesting ways, like bonding. What's his name?
Orthos.
Orthos. And then, like, I think it's all pretty satisfying with how he handles how the different power levels are handled, and moving up the levels. And that continued through this book. Again, I really, really enjoyed him and Yaren's relationship, and him and Ethan's relationship. He's definitely seeing Yaren as like a leader, but he's seeing that he is kind of like somebody he can look to, kind of as a friend in some ways, I feel like. And so it's fun to see that relationship develop. There's like kind of that will they, won't they with him and Yaren building up. There's like some flirtation going on inside the like cave during the training. So those parts were all really strong for me. I enjoy it. I'm a sucker for those kind of personal relationships going on in the books.
And I also feel like you start to get a sense of what is Yaren's like ultimate fear. And what would you say it is?
Of Yaren's ultimate fear?
Yeah. Or at least what I kind of think of it.
Well, I can't remember if this book 3 or 4, but you see that the bleeding phoenixes like killed her entire family. So it seems like something about the thing, the belt thing that she has, you find out is kind of like
yeah,
and like that getting loose and killing people. I don't know.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I think that's a good answer. What I was more thinking of is she almost seems to be afraid of being alone.
Yeah,
because I mean, I think the worst parts of her life have been when she's been alone up to this point. Yeah, so in book 4, it does go into like how, you know, this parasite killed her family, and until the sword sage found her. So I mean, I guess it probably wasn't that long that she was alone in between there, but and then after the sword sage died, and then Lyndon came into her life. So she seems like she and Lyndon, like their relationship is strengthening, and also like I think her dependence on him. I think that Lyndon is also like dependent on her, but she doesn't like want to tell Lyndon that like, hey, I don't want you to leave, but at the same time she's always really relieved when he sticks by her side.
Yeah, that's and it kind of happens a lot, right? So I don't know if it happens too much, but where she's like, oh, then just go if you don't want to be with me. And Aaron's like, or Lyndon's like, no, I want to be, kind of like something for,
Yeah.
But, but it is kind of, what's the word? A lack of confidence. What word am I trying to think of? Like it shows Yaren's kind of lack of confidence or lack of self-esteem. I feel like I'm missing the word, but like her insecurities. It shows Yaren's insecurities a little bit with how quick she is to be like, yeah, you should go. You don't need to stick around me anymore. We already fulfilled our bargain or whatever.
Yeah.
But neither one of them actually want that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on to book 4. This book starts very exciting in that we actually get to the duel between Lyndon and Jai Long. I thought that at the end of book 3, I was like, oh no, we haven't gone to the duel. Now it's going to be like at the end of book 4. But no, we actually jump right into the duel. And it is exciting. It's funny because I remember Jai Long, Lyndon's like using all of the tricks he can to win, obviously, because he is at such a significant disadvantage. But if I'm remembering it correctly, Jai Long tells Lyndon that he basically fights like a coward, right?
Mm-hmm.
During the duel.
Yeah.
And so that's like totally different, where this culture that is, all based on honor and like, how you fight is just as important as winning almost. And Lyndon's kind of like throwing that out the door a little bit. He's like, I'm doing whatever it takes to win, even if it's not the most honorable.
And yeah, I think he even makes a comment like, oh, I wish I could have gone here earlier. I could think of like a million ways to cheat, like I could have. Yeah. And that's kind of been his character. It's like, since book 1 in Sacred Valley with the bees or whatever, like those, like he's going to do anything. Like he sees winning as the end goal, and like whatever you can do to get that is what you should be doing. And if you're not doing that, then you're not really playing to win. So yeah, I think it is interesting. Like a lot of these kind of dishonorable things that you would usually associate with villains, but he's not really an anti-hero. Like you see stuff like that with like Jorg and Jorg of Anka and the what's that book series name?
Broken Empire.
Yeah, in the Broken Empire books, it's like Jorg, like I can't see him doing those things, but it's presented in like a super negative way, right? Whereas like he's an anti-hero, like a super gray character. Whereas like Laren or oh gosh, I'm Linden combined. That's their ship name. But like it's presented as a kind of endearing thing, right? Where he's not really a gray character at all. Like he's a typical protagonist, but
yeah, I'd
anyway.
say Linden is very much like, other than that, yeah, that's a good point. A lot of these things are things that might associate with like a antagonist or anti-hero, with him following the path of Blackflame, and also him whatever it takes to win type of mentality. So he loses his arm as well during this duel, and then it's quickly we see another fight between Athen and Jai Show, which is cool. We see another showdown, and it's pretty clear once again that Athen is outmatching him. But even then, we see that there's a third underlord who's kind of like trying to stop them from fighting. I forget his name though. You remember the leader of the Skysworn?
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name too though.
So I mean, I think my point, I guess, is that the beginning is pretty exciting, and we see that like the Bleeding Phoenix is coming, and the Red Moon Hall is coming. That's their name, right? But I think after that, the story just really loses a lot of steam.
It does, yeah. It's like they're kind of now
up on they go join the Skysworn.
Yeah. And then there's kind of like this like fake out, like, oh, they offended somebody, or oh, they're gonna get killed for practicing the path of the Blackflame, but no, they're just gonna be put as foot soldiers. And like this is what I mean. This is kind of what I was thinking more when it like zooms out, and it just feels like the transitions are kind of sloppy, if that makes sense, like with going from setting to setting. Whereas when you get into the settings, it's done really well. But like when it's like, okay, kind of in book 2, when they were journeying to the house of like or joining the house of Aurelius, like it just feels like there's these filler things that don't really make a lot of sense. Or they make sense, but like they're not super compelling, I guess. And that's where I feel like most of book 4 kind of hangs out in that zone of like, okay, we're moving from hanging out with Athen, doing his thing, fighting the Jai clan, and now we're going through this weird transition where we're now Skysworn going to be fighting. So,
but I think one of the most important parts of this book is that it, once again, it's starting to dip your toes into like even greater and parts of the world, because at this point, the Blackflame Empire is like the largest entity that we know, but we're quickly learning that they're like a very minor player in the world, and they are like subservient to the Akura clan. And it's interesting to see, like, because they need to go to the Akura clan for help, it's interesting to see like how subservient, like when Athen goes, even he is very like almost begging. It's like them begging for help. That just goes to show you, like, even within the world, how much, like, how small or how weak Linden is so far. Even 4 books in, he's still pretty insignificant, I think, as far as his power level.
Which, like, wasn't the guy that came down in the first book to Sacred Valley, wasn't he like a low gold or something?
No, I don't remember exactly. I don't think they said exactly what he was, but they give him like a gold badge, and he was like he said something along the lines of like, oh, like I'll accept this because like the gold is the most powerful thing, you know, but I am
Okay.
like
So
so
he was.
far beyond gold or something like that.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So
Yeah.
he's beyond gold, but we don't know exactly where
He was at. I think that it is kind of cool because it shows like this culture of respect that Sacred Valley kind of would inbreed and like would focus on, how that does kind of transition out to the wider world. Like even if the highest people in Sacred Valley are like Jades, right? Like even, which is really relatively like a 7-year-old or whatever would become Jade, outside in the Blackflame Empire. But it still shows that like it's important to have that respect because there's so many different power levels, and as long as you're respectful, you might be able to keep your life.
Yeah. And I think like, a lot of this is taken from, you can see a lot of the influences from like Asian cultures, where it's like very respectful of your elders. And I think like, a lot of that is channeled into this book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Along with kind of moving, I never did martial arts, but like going like different belts,
Yeah.
kind of like that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, those are kind of my thoughts. I don't know. Do you want to get more specific?
Not really. I mean, I think the other part of this book that so we start to see the Bleeding Phoenix, which is one of these dread gods that is that Lyndon now knows will destroy his village. So you start to see exactly what a dread god is, whereas before this it was a little nebulous.
I kind of asked. I asked that in our last episode. Which like I don't really see it going this way, but like I could kind of see this idea that like Lyndon is the one that causes the destruction, and I kind of hope it doesn't go there because that's not really the feeling of the books that I get. But I don't know. Anyway, I don't want spoilers, obviously, but that's one thing I'm kind of wary of.
So I'm like just trying to interpret. So you think that like in Lyndon's pursuit of trying to
save Sacred Valley, he's the one that
he ends up causing it? Is that kind of
yeah, that's kind of what I'm a little bit wary of. Because you can already kind of see like that maybe if Lyndon hadn't done anything, like hadn't been there, then maybe the Dread Gods or the what was it, the Bleeding Phoenix wouldn't have been awoken in the first place. Like Lyndon might have been one of the dominoes to compel it to happen.
We do see that when I forget what his name was, but one of the members of the Abidan, he learned like they detected the manipulation in Cradle, and so they saw that both there was tampering in Ethan and Lyndon's case, right? So in order to kind of restore balance, they tilted it back in I think they used the case of when Jai Daisho was opening up the labyrinth to go in and get the powerful the Archmage Stone, I think it was. Like there's a very slim chance that he would have, like a dread god would have noticed.
Right.
But he kind of, the Abidan
rolled the dice.
Yeah. Weighed the dice so that they would notice. So I think that's an example of exactly kind of what you were saying, in the sense that like Lyndon's or Suriel's tampering with Lyndon, and now Lyndon's kind of cascading, causing other ripples elsewhere in the world, has caused them to wake up and directly wake up the dread god.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting with what's the other person, the one that gave the thing to Azrael giving the thing to Ethan's great grandfather or whatever, and how like
Mm-hmm.
him and Ethan colliding is like making all these waves and fate.
It's magnifying everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like exponential, like
Mm-hmm.
fate being messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing that I wanted to talk about was just the fight at the end. So they ask the Akura clan for help with this dread god, and then Akura Malice comes out, and she's got that like huge. She's basically like this mecha, like she has like this huge suit of purple armor, and she's just like this towering giant fighting the bleeding phoenix. And this is your first view of like the awesome power of a herald, which is actually, you know, the tippy top of what we get on Cradle. So what'd you think about that?
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of like Stormlight Archive, when like you see like, well, dang, shouldn't spoil the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah, don't spoil the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah, but do you know what scene I'm talking about in Stormlight Archive? Anyway, I won't spoil anything.
Yeah, don't talk about it.
But
we'll talk about it after.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think you see, it's fun to see these power escalations, like I was saying before, and it makes you excited to be in the perspective of Lyndon hopefully achieving something like that, and see what goes into that.
I just love how varied the paths are, like that Will Wight has created in this world. I mean, we've seen that Aaron's on the path of the Sword Sage. You know, Lyndon's now on the path of the Black Flame. He's also doing this Pure Madra path that Ethan's got a bit of himself. You see the Stellar Spear, which is the Jai clan uses that. You know that there's like the wind, like the Naru clan, they have like the wings and the emerald wings, and they like basically like control like air to like hold people in place. So there's just like so many different things. I love how varied and different they are. Now we've seen the Akura clan, and they've got like this purple magical armor. That's I think one of my favorite parts about Cradle.
I agree. I think it's really solid when it comes to that. Yeah. And just how creative it gets. So
yeah. So I think let's wrap up this episode by saying, I think we did this last episode, what we would give each of these books out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Okay.
So I'll go first. I think I would rate Black Flame probably 7.5 out of 10. And I would probably give Skysworn a 6 out of 10. And that's mainly because I just think it loses its way in the middle and doesn't really find it till the end. So the beginning and the end are both pretty cool, but the middle, not so much.
Yeah, I honestly had those exact same scores in mind.
Oh, yeah.
I think 7 to 7.5 for Black Flame, and then 6. I think 6 is fair for Skysworn. So yeah, that's exactly where I would put it too.
Okay. Well, glad we're in agreement. Any other thoughts you want to share?
Not really. Just again, like, even if these are kind of lower scores, like if you're a fan of the series, don't come after us. Like, because 1, they're not really that low, and 2, I think again, a series like this really benefits from being so well, built out, and it's less about the individual book and more about the saga, as you referred to it in the beginning, and how it fits together, and the sum, the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. So I like it. I'm going to continue reading it. I think I'm taking a break. This is kind of a preview of what we have coming up, to read The Way of Shadows. And so I'm about 70% of the way through that. So I'm going to finish that, and then hopefully I'll go back and do another Cradle book, and I might bounce between those two series for a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, if you liked what you heard or seen here, then you want to potentially talk about it some more. Tell us what we got wrong, what we got right, what you liked about it, suggestions for us in the future. We are happy to talk to you on our Fantology Discord. We have Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, pretty much most of the social medias. I guess even TikTok too. I don't do TikTok, but
yeah, we haven't been doing it much TikTok at all.
okay.
I was supposed to be doing that, but I've been failing in that.
Well,
So
if you hate TikTok, then you probably like us.
Yeah, okay. I like that Venn diagram.
Yeah. Well, until next time, this is me, Ryan, and Josh.
All right.
We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.